On Thursday, CNN put out an inaccurate report on the Biden administration's COVID-19 vaccine plan.
CNN reported that a source told them there was no vaccine distribution plan from President Trump and that the Biden administration would have to start from scratch. But that's not what Dr. Fauci said yesterday. Listen.
Is the Biden administration starting from scratch with the vaccine distribution effort, or are you picking up where the Trump administration left off?
No, I mean, we certainly are not starting from scratch because there is activity going on in the distribution.
And then this is what President Biden said yesterday to a reporter about the number of vaccine doses he wants to dole out in his first 100 days. Here's that.
Mr. President, you set the goal at 100 million vaccines.
Thank you, guys.
Is that high enough? Shouldn't you set the bar higher? That's basically where the U.S. is right now.
When I announced it, you all said it's not possible. Come on, give me a break, man.
All right, our panelists are here to react. We welcome in Nan Hayworth with the Independent Women's Forum. She's also a former GOP congresswoman for New York's 19th Congressional District. Also welcoming in Tom Borelli, a Newsmax insider and contributor at America's Voice News, and Dan Geltrude, CPA and professor at Montclair State University. All right, good to see everyone this Friday morning. Nan, where should we start, right? This is kind of our media panel, so I guess we could start with the reporting coming out of CNN, which really drove their coverage all throughout the day yesterday, only to be reversed once Dr. Fauci actually addressed the reporting. Your thoughts?
It's remarkable, isn't it, Emma? Well, I trust that people will now be clamoring for all of the carriers to stop offering CNN, which clearly is promulgating lies and misinformation. Absent that, I think we need to understand that most of the mainstream media is very heavily invested in the success of their candidate, now their president, Joe Biden. So we can expect that we are going to have to be particularly vigilant, particularly discerning, and particularly meticulous about calling these people out, because this is going to go on ad infinitum. And Joe Biden has no intention, none, of promoting the truth or facts or anything else, because he never has. This is par for the course for Joe Biden, only now he's in the White House.
Tom Borelli, I'll get your thoughts on that. I'm sure you have them. This press briefing room has changed over the last few days.
Oh, certainly. I saw part of the briefing yesterday, and it looked like a little going out at a social circle there, a little coffee clutch event going on there. Yeah, you know, with respect to the vaccine, look, President Biden really wants to hide the tremendous impact that President Trump had with the development of the vaccine and also the early distribution of the vaccine. A lot of the distribution problems go right to the governors, and my mind goes immediately to Governor Cuomo, where in New York they actually had to throw out vaccines because he put the initial criteria so tight. I don't hear a lot of reporting on that, but Biden is really trying to hijack President Trump's success with the development of the vaccines, Operation Warp Speed. I don't think you're ever going to hear that word again. It's all part of the Biden plan to hijack President Trump's agenda that was very effective in dealing with this pandemic.
Well, the AP reporter was just trying to ask some clarity about sort of the rate of distribution, because based on where we're heading right now, Joe Biden will achieve that goal, again, based on the vaccinations that we've already seen so far. And Dan, what did you make of sort of his quickness to dismiss the reporter who was just trying to ask him if perhaps he should raise that number, raise that goal? It's, I guess, somewhat, maybe you could call it pushback against the president. I don't think so. I think it was a very fair question, and he didn't want to really answer it.
Well, fairness seems to be in the eye of the beholder, doesn't it? So what we're seeing across the board is everyone being forced to pick a side, be on a team. And it couldn't be more wrong, because the people who suffer the most are the American people, because you have to sit back and wonder, what is the truth? And the truth should be the truth, right? John Adams said facts are a stubborn thing. And it seems like there are no facts anymore. Everything is based upon opinion, which isn't necessarily wrong, but opinions are not facts. And I think that's where we're getting lost. And ultimately what we need is spirited debate on both sides. This whole experiment of democracy that we have in the United States, it's meant to be a big argument. And if you're going to have a big argument, both sides should have equal time and there should be fairness to express their views. Once the scale starts to tip in one direction or another, you lose the whole meaning of our democracy.
Dan, what world are you living in? Because I want to come live there. This fair, beautiful utopia that you're describing. Panelists, stick around. Nan Hayworth, Tom Borelli, Dan Geltrude. We'll see you in just a bit.
Canceling conservative voices and Trump supporters online appears to show no sign of stopping. Right now, a federal judge has refused to restore the social media site Parler after Amazon kicked the company off of its web hosting services over content it says was inciting violence. Our panel is back with us now. Nan Hayworth, Tom Borelli, and Dan Geltrude. Tom, as we know, there were critics who always said, if you don't like Twitter, just build your own social media platform. And now here we're at with a Parler social media conservative platform that is still loading. You can't even get online. Your thoughts?
Well, certainly, Emma, it's just a more attack on conservative speech. If you're a liberal, if you're a Democrat, you basically can say anything. If you're conservative, you can't. And then you go to an oasis like Parler, and just what happens? They discover that there was some violent rhetoric, and then they use that as an excuse to ban the app, and actually Amazon cloud services shut them off. What's really interesting here is the double standard. Look, clearly it was violent rhetoric on all social media platforms, and all of that shouldn't be there. But Parler gets singled out. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Twitter had violent rhetoric on it, and guess what? Amazon Cloud Services helps them, and they didn't get deplatformed. So this is a clear double standard that's really targeting conservative speech. And the American people really should be concerned about the attack on speech, because after all, that is our First Amendment, and there's a reason why it was number one.
Nan, there is a chance, talking about social media, and I'll get to that in a moment. Let's talk about Amazon. It has raised eyebrows, offering to help the Biden administration distribute the vaccine. If they had the capability, though, why didn't they offer this sooner? And this was asked of the press secretary yesterday in the briefing, Nan. Why didn't Amazon come forward? Why would they wait until now and say, oh, we'll help you out?
Well, the most troubling thing is that they published this letter offering their services individually, so to speak, to President Biden, offering it to him as a figure. And apparently they did, reportedly, they offered the same opportunity to the Trump administration, but never phrased it in terms of, dear President Trump, we're here to help you. Bravo, onward in the fight against coronavirus. So it's yet another indication or a validation for those of us who are troubled. And Dan said a great thing in the last segment. Unity is wonderful. We should be united as Americans, sharing a common vision of individual liberty. But what we have now is indeed, a almost monolithic set of influences on the left, including media, including technology, including, of course, the Democrat Party, who want to suppress the opposition. Any kind of opposition speech can be construed as somehow inciting awful things. That is very troubling. And, the treatment of this letter is a subtle indication of that kind of bias as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Big tech just has tremendous power. However, there is a chance that Donald Trump could get his Facebook page back. The company has said its independent oversight board will decide whether or not it will make a call to indefinitely suspend the president. Dan, obviously, the president used social media to get his message out to his supporters directly. Wouldn't have had to go through any news organization to do so. What do you think happens to Donald Trump, the American citizen and no longer president of the United States, access to social media?
What's most troubling about everything that's happening and what we see and what we're discussing, it's not just censorship. That's not a good thing. It's the selective censorship that we're seeing. So we're just looking at a certain group of people and say they're not allowed to speak because what they say incites violence. In the case related to Facebook having an independent oversight board looking at the situation with Donald Trump and whether he should be allowed back on their platform, let's hope that this board is truly independent and is going to look at this in a way where it's not just about Donald Trump. Clearly, he's making the headlines, as he should, as the former president of the United States. But the bigger picture is, what about the little guy? What about anybody out there who has an opinion that wants to express it? Are they going to be censored? And their audience may not be as large as Donald Trump, but that's really not the point. This point is really about being able to express yourself. And as Tom said, this relates to the First Amendment, and there's a reason why free speech is the First Amendment. It's because it is incredibly important. And I want to make one more point. When we're talking about the control that big tech has over what we hear and what we see, keep in mind that Amazon controls a third of the cloud infrastructure. And if you add in Microsoft and Google, it's about 60%. So if that's not control over the population, I don't know what is. The government has to take a serious look at how the antitrust statute applies to big tech.
Tom Borelli, Dan brings up an excellent point, but I argue we gave Twitter this power. We signed up for these Twitter accounts. We integrated it in just about every reality show. You can tweet, you can text this, you can tweet who you want to stay on your favorite show. We integrated it with no thought about just incorporating this private company, now public company rather, into our everyday lives. We handed it over. They hold the keys. What do you do at this point, Tom?
Well, that's a great point, Sean, because look, when these social media companies started, who would ever contemplate they would be the one leading a war against free speech? I mean, absolutely, that's outrageous. And then what do? The alternatives. We look for alternatives because now Twitter is really turned their face on free speech and against conservatives. So you go to something like Parler. And what happens to Parler? Well, they get them out of the market. My wife, Deneen Borelli, and I were on CloutHub, which is another alternative social media site. But we hope that they won't attack CloutHub as well. This is really a full-bore attack on free speech. We've seen other media companies try to suggest that Newsmax itself shouldn't be on cable news. What an outrage that is. This is really a complete war on free speech. And in the big picture, this is happening because the Democrats and the liberals and the left, they're afraid. They know they don't have policies. They know their ideas are horrible for the American people. Look, President Biden already just banned construction of the Keystone XL pipeline. What, 11,000 jobs down the drain? They're against Americans. They're against the forgotten men and women of the United States. And that's why they need to crack down on conservatives and this network. But it's not going to work.
Well, President Biden still has access to his Twitter account, so he and his staff could still send out messages that they want to. Of course, we see his press secretary in the briefing room answer some questions. But Nan, I wonder how much Joe Biden, the president, will make himself available to reporters and kind of take questions off the cuff that haven't been pre-approved by reporters on the list. Do you see that happening within the next 4 years? And what sort of rate of frequency might that be?
Yeah, zero, Emma. We saw it during the campaign. And I think there are many reasons for that. One is that, yes, President Biden is quite gaffe prone. Another is that I think he's being very substantially programmed. When he was signing the first set of executive orders in the Oval Office on Inauguration Day, he could not actually articulately explain and accurately explain what he was signing. That alone should concern us, but of course, many of us, at least 74 million of us had that concern before the election. So no, expect no transparency. Expect Jen Psaki and the press secretary corps to get a pass from a supine mainstream media because they're not there to ask questions. They're there to cheerlead. And that should trouble us all.
Well, I guess if that fails, someone within the Biden administration could just leak a story to CNN and then they'll run with it. So we can just count on that. All right, Nan Hayworth, Tom Borelli, and Dan Geltrude, thank you, Friday panelists. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Emma.